I lost myself. I lost a little bit of connection with my family, with my children, with my wife. I was flying back and forth from California to Arizona. And then, yeah, when the dust settled, like I had this big pile of cash or this big net worth number that I thought was going to make me happy. And in the end, it didn't. It really didn't. And so
Okay.
I pulled back. And now, with what I'll probably share here shortly, it just gives a sense of that fulfillment where it's not monetarily driven. Because if you have that story, you have that purpose, you have things that people can support and drive with you on, I think the money will automatically.
Uh,
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
versus money first mindset, it's more of a purpose first, and the byproduct is being confident.
all right, cool. We're going to get into unconventional capital. So, yeah, we're taught to the house is your biggest purchase of your life, American dream. And here we are. You got to go to the bank, have a credit score. You got to have bank statements. You got to have W-2s, taxes, blood sample. And then, and you got to save up that 20% down to get the house.
Mm,
And once you finally do that, 3, 4 years, you put it all down and then you're back to zero. And now you don't think you could buy another house for another 3, 4 years.
that's exactly right.
That's what majority of people go through.
Believe, yeah.
So show us how to do this without that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is not my original idea. I
Of
put my own
course.
spin on it, but
Yeah.
in 2021, I went to an event and Chris Clothier was the speaker. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah.
his name. Yeah, Memphis
Oh, yeah, sure.
Invest. Yeah, he does turnkey
Mhm.
investments. And I saw his breakout and he talked about creating a bank. And I sat in on that. And what the bank book was, is it's just a credibility book where you talk about who you are, what you want, what makes you credible, your experience level, what your ask is. And it's just basically a presentation folder that summarizes exactly who you are, where you're going, and what you want to achieve. And so I did that. I created the bank book, and he suggested after you create your bank book, you can go into any regional credit union or bank, not a traditional Wells Fargo or Chase thing, and you can walk in and talk to that specific credit officer and give them your bank book. And that credit officer will take that bank book and go to the board of directors and actually present your ask. Now,
Mhm.
first, I was like, no way. That sounds a little too pie in the
Yeah.
sky. That seems like I vision all these people in suits talking about your bank book, like they're going to give you credit line. So I gave it a try. I was in California. I created my bank book. This is it right here. You guys can see that. And in the summary, I had all my tabs with all the different sections in there. And then this, which is really cool, I actually found this. This is the list of all the banks that I actually went to. They're all in Arizona.
All right.
And so I listed 10 banks. I scheduled meetings with 7 different credit officers. And surprisingly, I got a credit line approved. It wasn't secured to any specific tied, any specific asset, global credit line. And I was approved for $950,000
Oh, wow.
where I could just basically draw. It was a 2-year term. I could draw on that line and go out acquire. There's no lien going to be tied to that acquisition. Work.
Is this based on your personal credit at any level?
Yeah, so I did lean into that a little
Okay.
bit. I leaned into my credit. I leaned into some of the strengths that I had, some of my experience and who I was. Yes, I did have a background in lending, so I knew how to cater my story a little bit
Mhm.
to that. I got 4 out of the 5 meetings. I got 4 no's and I got 1 yes, and it worked. And I will, when that happened, I ended up not taking the line. I
Okay.
didn't like the line. It was 2 years. I was like, it doesn't really suit my needs. But what really happened was, I was like, if this works for a corporate bank where I could just walk in with my story and they approved me for basically $1 million, could I do this on a personal level? And I did that.